Hello, everybody, and hello, everyone. Welcome to Currency Podcast number 98 and Twitch stream. Welcome on the Twitch stream. I did start over the Twitch stream one time because it was a little crackly, and so this is attempt number 2. But today I'm going to be playing. I'm not going to be playing Fall Guys. I'm going to be playing the EA Sports Rory McIlroy PGA Tour, a relatively new golf game, but not the best one available. I wanted to play 2K21 PGA Tour or whatever. The newest one from the 2K series is like the marquee golf video game that's available right now, but that one would have cost me $60, and then this one for some reason was free.
Opening round coverage.
I guess because it's the EA Sports. It's the EA Sports version of the same thing, and EA Sports has been getting murdered in the past decade by the 2K series. So it makes some sense right off the bat that you see that the 2K version of the same thing. I mean, I guess that's got to be what it is. This is like the newest EA Sports one that anybody's playing for golf. And
all right, Frank, this one gets everybody's attention. 14th,
and
81 yards,
this
par
is,
4.
and
It's not just the length
so
of the
2K has a new one,
down
EA
the
Sports
left,
is a new
mounds to
one.
the right. This is it.
It's kind of like a Nike Adidas thing where it's like EA Sports was more dominant in like the year 2005 or whatever, but things have definitely turned around in the last decade. Popularly, 2K as a series is doing a lot better than EA Sports. Let me just mention that. I really needed to mention that, get that out of the way. But it really shows because this is kind of a shitty game. What I wanted to do was play an online tournament.
And
these broadcasters need to shut the fuck up. So I'm explaining something.
If you want to be successful.
On the outside, it might look like the bare bones of professional golf, but you play for less money.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that it is. The way that the broadcaster just said.
This is how you find, really, how much are you prepared for the long haul? And then
yeah, but there's EA Sports and then there's whatever else.
You realize, are you tough enough?
I figured I could play a video game golf while doing a podcast because you can wait between the...
It toughens a player up. We've seen it with guys like Matt Kuchar.
Between the shots to talk about whatever, but...
with Zach Johnson, another major champion. These are all guys who had to grind it out on the web.
It's hard to get the volume right.
Graduating to the
as long as I'm talking louder than the people, then it really doesn't matter. I wanted to hear the broadcasters so I could make fun of what they're saying, but that might not be able to work out. Especially if they're just going to be distracting. So the golfer that I made in the career mode, his name is Barge Mistletoe, and so
miss the fairway.
The thing about Barge Mistletoe is that like golfing is more than just a game for him. It's like it's kind of like his life. That's the thing about Barge Mistletoe, like he's that good. He's my favorite. Holy shit. Oh, I almost chipped it in. But anyway, I'm playing a career mode tournament rather than that I'm playing anybody for real, because the live tournament feature, the online tournament feature, doesn't work on this game. So I'm finding out why it's $60 cheaper than the other one, even though people rate this one the same as the other one. They're like, this is comparable. But the 2K one seemed like it was a little bit more the standard for this. For golf games people were playing right now, and I knew that, and it was like, but it was $60 more. But I downloaded this one, and it takes like 5 hours to download a game, and then I find out that I can't play any online tournaments, and that would have been more compelling for like a podcast episode. But you know, it doesn't really matter. A career mode tournament, while on the surface might not sound that it would be compelling at all. This is like a 4-day tournament, but they start me off at the 13th hole or something.
15 requires all of your attention, doesn't it, Frank?
Personally, I think this is the prettiest hole on the golf course, Rick.
You know, I'm not
back
really.
here and taking pictures. Just a gentle dogleg.
Don't really feel like complaining about it, but for some reason that's what I started off doing was complaining about the game. It's important to complain. That's what's important. So I'm trying to tell you what the stakes are here. The stakes are I'm playing in the first tournament of my career mode, and the first tournament they line it up in this game is the Tour Championship of the Web.com Tour. And if I make it in the top 50, I make it to the Korn Ferry Tour. The Korn Ferry Tour is kind of like, hey Dad, I made it into the Korn Ferry Tour. You know, you tell your dad, and your dad's like, I always knew you was a Korn Ferry. Doesn't surprise me. Just confirms what I already knew. Just to manufacture a joke for you. But I set it up wrong by delivering it wrong because no one cares. No one cares about that. No one cares about me considering the way that I screwed up about something.
Oh no, look out, Frank. I think he flushed that one.
Oh, this is going, gone.
It really doesn't matter what I say. What matters is that I need to win the tour, the Web.com Tour, for God's sake. When all else fails, as long as I can make it to the top 50 of the Web.com Tour in the career mode on EA Sports, Rory McIlroy PGA Tour, then I'll finally be okay. Then I can finally achieve some level of happiness.
You like this one, Frank?
This interesting thing has been happening in my life recently where, what are you, Korn Ferry? You know, that, like, you make it onto the Korn Ferry Tour. And is it an accomplishment? Do you make your dad proud, or is it just what your dad always thought that you were? That's what the joke was. I'm sorry that it devolved into me explaining the joke. It's just that I was already joking about it in the first run through of this that I restarted because the headset was crackly. And now I feel unenthusiastic about re-delivering it the same way because I feel like a fraud.
Movement that starts at 16 can be carried all the way to the clubhouse.
This phenomenon has been happening in my life where I wake up and, ooh, that's gonna make it in the fairway. I wake up and I think that it's like funny, that I woke up again. Like, I'm so aware the instant I wake up, like, I'm too aware just in regular life, like, I'm thinking about a lot of things. And then, like, it's kind of weird when you wake up and, like, instantly you're back in the same shit that you were in the day before and so many days before that. Like, I've been waking up recently and it's been, like, funny to me when I woke up. Like, oh, yep, back doing this yet again. Or it's more like, looks like I woke up again. Like, I actually woke up. You know, it's great to actually wake up. I actually woke up, did it. I actually woke up. I'm the guy that actually woke up. Today and every day. I found myself.
The amazing thing about 17,
I found
it's the only
myself
hole
when I woke up and I thought it was funny.
By his wife, Alice. They had a problem trying to get from 16
but
to
I am
18.
trying to make it into the top 50 of the Web.com Tour. Hopefully I'll finish this tournament by the time the episode is done, so you can know if I'm progressing in my career. Because this is the most compelling thing I can do for this video game, since online tournaments are not available, and they're not available to anybody since the game started. The feature is on the game, and it has not, they haven't made any updates to make it so that people can play it. Since, like, in the 3 years since they made this game is shitty. You should listen to the soundtrack. I hope you get to hear a piece of it later. It's like the music budget for this video game, because you're also getting a video game review right now. It's like the music budget for this video game was like $100 or something. They got only royalty-free music that sound like knockoffs of the X-Ambassadors, but with no vocals. It's just like light music. It's like the worst attempt at music in a video game. And it just is it signifies what's happened to EA Sports in the last decade. Where, I mean, maybe it's something that they like can come back around and be popular again in the future, like Champion, the brand. Champion the brand, not champion a champion. But the person that I made, me as a pro, the custom character I made before I started doing the stream, his name is Barge Mistletoe, and it's spelled Missiletoe. And he's just kind of like the consummate pro. It's really his life. He cannot not golf, this guy. Where is Barge Mistletoe? He's on the course. He's practicing his 4-iron. He's practicing his 4-iron again. Oh, he might... maybe he switched to the 3, that he's practicing that. I'm going to go practice my 3-iron for a little bit. Just that one. I'm not going to bring any other clubs. Just me and my 3, you know what I'm talking about? It's not a euphemism for 1 penis and 2 balls. Just me and my 3. You know where I'm coming from? You know what I mean when I say those words? Hey, it's just me and my 3. Okay, but the Web.com Tour Championship, for whatever reason, is at TPC Sawgrass, which is, of course, with the island green. So that is even more interesting for you to tune... for when you tune in. If you wanted to tune in... whatever. And I mean, I don't want to sound pushy for a guy that made a podcast, or whatever you would call it. I mean, I guess that's what you'd say, that's what this is. I mean... but I've got a lot of things to say for today, so if you stick around, if you manage to make it through this part where I'm just describing the game I'm playing, it's just that... what was I just mentioning? Barge Mistletoe. He just lives to play golf. He has blue hair, but is otherwise a well-dressed, well-meaning professional. He's a professional. He swings the 3-wood. He swings the 5-wood. He swings the 5-wood. He swings the 7-wood if he has one. If he has a 7-wood, he swings it. He's a pro. Barge Mistletoe. He gave up giving fucks years ago. That's how you know. Barge Mistletoe gave up giving fucks years ago. That's how you know he's Barge Mistle. Grow. Barge Missile. But anyway, it's not... that's not necessarily part of it. That's not necessarily part of why I'm broadcasting for you today. That's not necessarily the reason. It's not necessarily like an influential reason. Whoa, this one's gonna be real fucking good. Oh, I am looking at that top 50 right now. But anyway, so it's a 4-round tournament, but it appears that they just start me off on the like 14th hole for every round. So I'm only going to be playing like a few holes.
Just trying to take care of business.
He is just trying to take care of business and working overtime here. That's all. I hope you can hear the broadcasters that are built into the video game, so that I can make fun of them. But I can't tell if you can or not, because there's like the volume on my headset, but then there's the volume that you custom set for the Twitch stream, but then there's also volume going on my TV that's different from all of that. So it's hard for me to get all of that right. And if you push past like maybe the first 15 minutes of the most previous episode, the volume gets a little better. I think I turned the volume down on my TV because right away, and maybe through most of the episode on the audio recording, the TV is kind of loud, and I apologize. But if you watch the YouTube video, it's a little quieter. The sound is better. But yeah, I mean, listen on the audio or watch it, whatever. But this is a Twitch stream and podcast episode. The #1 Twitch stream and podcast in the entire nation is what you're listening to or potentially watching. here today. Is it an event? No. Is it a pretend event? Yes. This is a pretend event that I've put on.
This one should be
You get to
on
see
deck
me
here.
hit the green in regulation
Booty try.
on the
Next.
world famous Island Green 17th at TBC Sawgrass.
Boy, this could be a tough one right here, Frank.
It's a
Yeah,
very
it's
long
the
putt,
island
Rich. Obviously,
famous
it's difficult,
green at the
but he still
TPC
has the shot to set
whatever.
this one for birdie.
That nobody asked for and nobody cared about until somebody made it. Until Pete designed it. Until somebody designed this hole. Nobody asked for it and nobody knew. And then we're like... I mean, it really begs the question, why is there only one island green? Are people afraid of looking like plagiarists by making another one? Answer me. I don't like only one. I mean, there's other ones in the world that are varying degrees of an island. Wow, I almost putted that one into the
That's
water.
a head scratcher. No other way to put it. That close to the green. And
But
misses badly to the
I mean,
right.
I'm gonna take a trip to Houston this upcoming week, and I'm gonna be gone for a week. I'm gonna go to Houston and Austin, and I'm gonna do stand up in that city because you can just fly into any city wherever you want and just do stand up in that city, kind of clown on the city, like, hey, I'm here too, even though I'm not from there. Just dance all over them, you know, ball out on the ass as best I can. In their city, where I'm not from their city, but then I go to their city, and then I'm just kind of like, whatever it is, all over where they are, what they've got going on. I'm gonna bring what I've got going on
So
to
with
their
that,
city, and then
the score is now at even
it'll
par.
be a mixing and matching of different goings on between me and other people, different styles. Because you
Now to
have
the
the comedy
18th hole,
stylings of a
TPC
city like
Sawgrass,
Houston, and then
162
the culture
yard
of
par
comedians
four.
that do the
Frank,
comedy
another
in the
example
city
of
and like that, and then you
visual
have a
intimidation.
different me representing a different city,
Designer,
but
Those wooden bulkheads that go all the way down the left
lots
side
of
18
words,
give you like an optical illusion, Rich.
lots
And there's
lots
not a
of
single fairway
words.
bunker on the right to give you
So
something
I went into a
specific to aim
Subway,
at. So
and
you've got to fixate on one of those trees. This is not a hole
the
where you
guy
want to be
behind the
looking
counter at the
anything
Subway
other than a
was
specific
like,
target.
hey, I'm your friend, or something. Like, he was just kind of talking out of his ass about things, like he was offering knowledge that was specific to him, the guy who was working at Subway. And there are a couple people in front of me in
Now he
line,
just needs one
and
final good swing here. The approach shot to
he
the
was
last.
talking to them
That
and
green's
telling
starting
his
to look a little
tales
smaller than what
about
it
just
did
like
earlier in the
information
day.
he knew. Like, I found out a number of things about this guy just in the time I was in the Subway. He told me that he used to be like some research biologist, some fancy scientist or something, which, like, he mentioned that he was one. And so that immediately causes anybody within earshot to ask the question, like, why are you now working at a Subway? And I didn't ask him that. He volunteered because he knew that that would be the next question on anybody's lips. He was like, now that I'm in retirement, so he's some retired research botanist or some shit. Real highfalutin guy, like he talking down to everybody. He must be rich. I'm just kidding. Because no, he wasn't highfalutin or anything. I'm just pretending to be somebody who reads too much classism into a situation, but only momentarily, and I didn't pull it off long enough that you would be able to consider that it was even a joke. Just to explain that to you, too many ums as pause breaks. I said to myself, way too many dude, way too many ums in your podcast, man. I mean, like, you were aspiring to the highest standard of podcast to begin with, and that's why it was so shocking that there was an overabundance of ums, signifying that you weren't performing to the standard that you were aspiring to. And so we were all very disappointed in listening, said somebody, said a possible fan or critic or something of the show. But I walked into the Subway, and that guy that's there, he's like volunteering information, and it just makes me it makes me wonder in retrospect, like, is that even allowed anymore? Because basically nobody is doing that, where they're just saying, oh, this is my knowledge, because he started talking to me once he started making my sub, the conversation turned to lard, the topic of lard, and he was telling me all of the juiciest facts, all the juiciest gossip on lard that he knew. That, like, he went to the ends of the earth to track down this information, or whatever it was, because he has the knowledge of it that I don't have, and he's schooling me about lard. And it makes me wonder, because I basically don't see this happen anywhere, where you walk into some place and the person is like people aren't even that friendly anymore, but
Frank,
the
golf
stereotype
may
is
be
that they
the
were a
best
lot
sport to
friendlier
follow
like
from this
30 years
standpoint.
ago or
You
40
can
years
get
ago. I don't know
closer
if
to
that's
the great
necessarily
athlete in
true.
golf than you
Like,
can in any other
it just
sport.
makes me wonder,
You
like, did
could
we always
stand
look down on
5
this
feet from
person
Tiger Woods
who's
at a
just
tee box
volunteering their
as he's getting ready to
information,
drive. I mean, that's
when
really
it's like
unusual in
mostly from
sports.
him,
Yeah,
and
it's
the
a
rest of
different
us are
type of
just here to
spectator
deal with
sport,
it.
especially if you
Or
if you
was
follow
there a
your
time like
favorite
30
player
years
all the way
ago
around the golf course. Because it's not
where,
like waiting for your favorite hitter in a baseball game. You know, you got to wait
whatever the
several innings. You
broadcasters
can
are
literally
saying
see
doesn't
him hit
matter.
every single shot.
Just
Drive
don't
through
listen
the
to
bunker.
them. Those are the voices in my head, the broadcasters. They're alternative. But Barge Mistletoe, he's one of my alter egos. This is, I mean, not actually, but just as a joke. That's how you should see it. This is me as a pro golfer. When my Barge Mistletoe comes out, I start playing professional golf. That's what that means. That's what it represents. Don't make me put on airs of Barge Mistletoe, I said to the masses. I said to people of all ages, of all sizes, creeds, sexes, and tongues. People of all different kinds of tongues. Swollen, minuscule, snake-like, Simmons, the guy from Kiss, that kind of tongue, long tongue. People of, I mean, long tongue, that's not an issue. Don't forget the plight of the long-tongued. They haven't lived an easy life. They probably lived a harder one than you. Why don't you live a week with a long tongue? Tell me how easy it is after that's done. Walk a mile in their tongue. Walk a mile in their tongue and tell me what's going on afterward. Tell you what, you ain't seen nothing until you done it with a longer tongue than the one you got right now. Boy, you best try. You ain't seen nothing like Uncle Ed seen. Boy, you ain't lived as hard a life as my Uncle Ed. He drowned when he was 4. Sucked for him. He didn't live an easy life. I know that he was my uncle, but it's just one of those things where it works out that way. Like, you know how you can have an uncle that's 3 years old? But it was just, take my word for it, one of those situations where it was like I had a really older sibling. Take my word for it. Uncle Ed lived a hard-ass life. You ain't shit till you drowned either. Not till you drowned can you make something of your life, boy. You're a damn corn fairy. Oh, I always knew you would be. You told me you made the corn fairy too, or I was like, only confirmed what I already knew. Boy, you got the stench of Corn Fairy on you since day one. The Corn Fairy is the name of the tour. It's a real tour. It's a golf tour. It's like the one before the PGA Tour, that if you graduate the Corn Fairy, if you like stop being a Corn Fairy, then you're a real golfer. I guess that's just not just how it works by title in real life, but just what it represents is also true. You're really ain't nothing but a corn fairy until you get off of the tour and make it to where the big boys play, where the big boys hit their 2 irons and then putt the ball 10 feet away on a left to right break. That's when you're a pro. Don't make me be Barge Mistletoe, because I'll start making birdies. Anyway to you. anyway, to you, person who's listening or somebody who's not listening, you have made it to one of the darker corners of the internet, the corner that on which my podcast that sometimes gets 6 YouTube views on the view. Okay, but also news and notes for the podcast. I switched hosting. I used to have it hosted on SoundCloud. Now it's being hosted on Anchor. In case you tuned into SoundCloud, you might have noticed that my views dropped dramatically. That's because they aren't counted on SoundCloud anymore. Now they're counted on Anchor. Anchor has a higher standard for what a view is than SoundCloud. So I've gotten less views since I switched to Anchor per episode, but it is better now because Anchor allows me the opportunity to make money a lot easier. And so I threw in an ad, since it gave me that option, on the episode number 97 titled Asexuality, which is the first ad that I put in, and I didn't listen to the episode to hear what that means, that I threw in an ad. So if the ad is really offensive to you, I'm just trying to make money, just so you know. But I'm stepping my whole self into the waters, into the pool of attempting to make money, so that I make a podcast called Currency, and that I am no longer a fraud for calling it currency and saying I have authority over money, but not making any money over it. But I might have actually made $1. I just haven't checked it recently. So stop making it so that I'm under the gun. Person that I'm imagining is making it that way. Person that I'm pretending is putting pressure on me. You have to put a lot of pretend pressure on yourself in a situation of where there isn't pressure, you know, if you do want to accomplish something. Like if you don't want, I mean, if you have an easy life. But let me finish this Subway story. This guy was talking about lard, and that when I got up there, and he's just volunteering this information. And what it made me think about was, like, is this even allowed in society anymore? Or like, or is this guy speaking out of turn with what is cultural, which it's like, I feel like it's cultural now to really just shut up about whatever your knowledge is. And that's why I make this podcast, is because I don't want to bring up any of my news and my theories in conversation with people or in real life. So it all goes in here and ends up in the darker corners of the internet for people who make videos and podcasts where they don't get very many views. But because I am trampled and suffocated underfoot by all the people who are already famous, because that's who YouTube rewards. And I mean, whatever, NBC has it in good with the YouTube algorithm that they're going to be able to get Jimmy Fallon 3 million views on every one of his videos. It's even worse with Stephen Colbert. If you're an establishment persona, you're going to be good. It's just that the famous are already rewarded for being more famous. How do you make it into the game? That's the question, isn't it? That's always the question. But that's why you make a hero out of the people that did make it. And it's just like exponential gain for the people that are already rich. That's always the case. The rich get richer. That's like how it works. You're rewarded for... But I'll try to finish this story about the subway. I'll try to not be ADD. I will try to not be ADD, which I have. I do have ADD, ADD. You know, I mean, ADD, that's tough to live with, but it's not that tough when you think about that there's so many women that have 2 DDs. You know that? And that's a joke. That's a joke for like a... that's a line. Like, that's a punchline. I only got 1, you know? I only got 1 DD. It's not that hard when I consider the perspective. So many women have to live with 2 DDs. I only have a DD. I'm talking about, double Ds, in case you didn't figure that out yet. And if you didn't, you're fucking dumb. Alright? Not to jump the gun on that assessment, but if you didn't figure out that that was the joke at this point, you might be fucking dumb. And you need to take some time to consider how dumb you are and how far this has gotten. Maybe this is a wake-up call for you. Maybe I'm the first person to call you dumb that you've taken seriously. You need to chase that feeling. You need to figure it out. How dumb am I? Because, like, I mean, not actually, I'm being facetious, but I think there is an overabundance of people congratulating each other on being smart in this country. When in reality, you're smart some days, and then you're dumb other days. It's in and out. It's relative. There are people, it's not like the person that's smart is smart all the time. But, like, we have a weird relationship to smart. Probably too much an idealistic one, where we think if somebody's smart, they are way smart. Like, it's kind of a stigma, where we separate the smart people among us. We're like, they're smart, and I'm dumb. I'm not near them. When in reality, you're probably relatively near them. And also, it's difficult to classify intelligence since there's so many different versions of it. Intelligence comes in so many different shapes and sizes. There's definitely stupid. There's definitely people who access almost none of those different versions of intelligence. There are definitely the dumb. And so you don't need to say that everybody is smart. And, like, that's not what I don't mean that, well, everybody's intelligent. You just need to give them time. And in some senses, that's true. It's just for some people, the amount of time you'd need to sacrifice, like No Child Left Behind. No, that should never be the policy, because people are a different rate of learning and of intelligence. I'd say that you could ultimately summarize it as that, to rank people by intelligence, is that intelligence is a rate at which you are able to pick things up and decipher patterns that you see in whatever, so many different areas across the entire world. And some people, their rate of learning is so slow that it's not worth devoting the resources, and they just fall into the dumb category. But it's not that bad to be dumb. But it's kind of like this relationship that we have to genius is an antiquated one, where, like, because we have a disconnected relationship to smart in the world, like, we put the smart people on a pedestal when we think that we aren't, especially, and universities influence culture to say that that's the case, that the smart are so much smarter than you. That's like, it's, some of that is dictated to our entire country by universities, academia, whatever power, the amount of power that universities have for being a stronghold, a collection of professors, a bunch of people that have spent a shit ton of time just in the area of learning so that they can say that they are smarter than you. There's power that comes with that, and influence. And so the universities don't just influence students that go to them, they influence the entire culture. And I'm just saying that there's a relationship that we have to genius. Sorry, I need to finish the story about Subway. And man, like, coming up with material for stand-up is gay. It's just like, coming up with that, it feels dumb. Like, coming up with a joke that has a punchline. And it has influenced me to sometimes, when I'm on here, tell a joke like it's material I came up with. Because that joke about double D's is something I thought of before. And like, as if, like, I was thinking of it for, this is material I could say on stage, but then I completely forgot about it until this moment. And then I'm like, I'm going to deliver it like it's a joke. Like, delivering things like it's a joke is so unnatural. It's just kind of depressing that you do actually have to say punchlines to get people to laugh at you, get them on board. Like, well-crafted jokes are yucky. I don't want to be part of a well-crafted joke. Not now, not in any of my past lives. Save me. I'm lost. Save me from that. Save me from making a well-crafted joke, Lord.
That had to really
But, like, I
hurt
wake
to
up
look
and
good
I'm
all
like,
the way.
Well, this will
Wow,
test his metal.
it's almost just comical at this point. Like, yet again, I woke up to do yet another of these days where I'm just thinking about shit the entire day. My mind is whirling around while I confine myself to basically the same location, Northwoods Apartments. Day to day, I mean, I go out into the city, but it's like I come back here, and like if you were just looking at the dot that represents me moving around within the city, it would just, and like you did a time lapse, so it was sped up. The dot would keep coming back to my apartments where I live and just be like, mostly going to places that are near my apartment, so it's like I'm just always at the apartments, like I'm stuck here. Like if you had a time lapse of what's been happening in my life over the last 2 years, and then there was a dot that represented all the places I went that you were looking at from overhead of the city, you would say that I am trapped in a time warp or something. Like I'm trapped in these apartments. Like I'm stuck in this holding pattern where I can't, it always just ends up going back to where I was. And so that's depressing to think about. But the guy at Subway was like, I'll finish the story this time. I'll stay focused on it, but you know for sure I will finish it before the hour is out. So just give me time. Just please, if you would give me some time. So he got to me and he's talking about lard and his knowledge about lard. And what I was thinking was like, afterward, like, is this even allowed? Because I feel like the entire society has figured out that people are just talking out of their ass when they bring up knowledge that's just specific to them. Because it's one of these situations where everybody in the room who's listening to this guy talking is like in a position where we're like, yeah, well, we don't know if that's true because the reason you're saying it is because it's something that you particularly know. Like, has society decided that whenever somebody's bringing up something that's specific to them in conversation, that's just bullshit? Is what I'm wondering. Have people realized that everybody's just lying all the time and the stories they bring up are exaggerated and mostly bullshit, and when somebody says that they did something, they didn't actually do it? Like, when everybody talking to each other, they're just making bullshit up all the time. And I feel like the world has sort of realized this in the last 5 years to the point that we're like, okay, don't even talk unless you like really are worthy of it. Or was it always like this? Because in some regards, we've always treated this guy at Subway the same way, where we're like ignoring him. But things probably I bet that things were friendlier, where we gave everybody the benefit of the doubt or acted like more communal. Like what they were saying had some bearing on our life. I think that people used to respect people and give them the time of day more so that in a time gone by, we would have listened to this guy talking at Subway and been like, oh wow, I wonder what that means for me. Like, but this guy seems to be carrying on, and he's mentioning it too, like, well, he's saying throughout the interaction, like, well, there's your worthless information, and he's like, well, I hope I'm not bothering you with that, because he wants it to still be the time where people are going to hear him talk out of his ass and not be disrespectful, but that time is gone. And
Frank getting set now for one of the
more
exciting back nines in all of golf.
He is talking to me about lard,
And it starts at
that
10. It
like
looks a
he was
dog
saying
leg
that
to
they
the
make
left, really, but
the
you've got to play it as a
cookies.
straightaway tee
Now if you
shot.
notice, so this is
Run
day
out
2
just
of the
over
tournament,
310 yards.
so I don't know that I'm going to be able to finish this whole tournament before the episode is over. So the mystery of whether or not I make it onto the Corn Ferry Tour may not be solved just yet for you, the viewer, but maybe the next episode I do will be the startling conclusion
He's winding this one up.
to the ooh, I really drove that ball. They gave me a special graphic for hitting it really hard. You'll figure out the conclusion if I make it in the Corn Ferry Tour maybe next episode, because I don't think I'll be able to finish 4 rounds in this one because I'm going really slow because I'm taking long pause breaks to talk. But he was talking about how they make the cookies out of lard at Subway, or at least that's maybe what he said, because he kept saying so many different statements. I actually don't remember any one thing certainly, that he said, because he kept saying things that were different. He's like, they make these out of lard, but at Subway they make the dough out of not lard. Or I don't know if he said that they used to make the cookies out of lard. But then he started saying, like, well, you know, when they make whatever in Mexico, maybe, they make the tortillas out of lard or whatever. But he was just going into this. It's like, the point that I sort of want to make, among others, about what this interaction with this guy is that it's like anytime somebody is just offering their own knowledge, we call that a conspiracy. Like, this guy is just talking out of his ass, but it's like we call everything a conspiracy, that he's basically a conspiracy theorist just for saying some dumb shit. Like, that's what makes you a conspiracy theorist. The bar is that low. It's like that easy to be one. It's like he's talking about conspiracies about lard just because the information is sort of speculative, or he's just kind of saying, like, well, it used to be like this, because what he's saying doesn't apply to everybody everywhere. He's like, they made lard, they made tortillas out of lard, but it's like not everybody did everywhere. And so because of that, he's kind of a conspiracy theorist just because he's talking out of your ass. Like, that's what makes you one now. It's just if you're trying to say something that you know that other people don't. But, and I'll say something else about conspiracies in a minute, but, and I really will. I really will do that because I have the power of not just myself, but also my alter ego Barge Mistletoe on my side. And that's kind of like resorbing a fetus in the womb, so to speak, if you want to describe it that way. Not that that happened to me in real life, but the digital persona, like, I mean, it's nice to be able to get it all out there, like process the fetus that I could have absorbed and then represent that in the form of a digital golfer persona that I created. It's great that he gets to take the weight of that, take the burden of those feelings. He's my goat, you know. He's my rock. Arch Mistletoe's my rock. I cast all of my cares onto him. He's Jesus to me. Because when he fails, when he fails, I fail. Like, if you could make it so that your worth was projected onto this guy golfing in a career mode video game, so it's like easier for you to control your level of success. People do that with video games. They're like, people trick themselves into thinking that they're like they can channel all of their feelings of success somehow into like a golfer that they created in a career mode against robots, and then they win that. Like, people do that to varying degrees depending on how addicted they get in video games. But the guy at Subway was like, he was just saying different things about it, and then he's like, by the end of the transaction, he was like, so your grandma, when she makes biscuits, she makes them out of lard, because he's telling me like the history of lard, or like that, well, we actually use it all the time. And I was like, I'm not a lard aficionado, which I was explaining to this guy, because he ended up explaining the difference between lard and butter to me, because he's like, they don't use lard for this, they use butter. And I was like, oh, that's like almost the same thing. And he's like, that is the same thing. And then I realized in that moment, I actually don't know enough about butter that I would be able to refute this guy. Because it's not the same thing. Because one of them is butter and one of them is lard. But like, I guess I know what he means. But he's just a conspiracy theorist because he's making distinctions like this. Like, whatever. I mean, the same thing as I do on this podcast, but I put it aside for people to access if they want to or not. I don't just throw it in your face. So that's why I'm a good person. Or a shitty person, I don't really know. But he was like, your grandma makes... That's why your grandma makes biscuits out of lard. So it's like now now he's bringing my grandma into this. Like he's been in my grandma's kitchen now. Like it's one thing to act like you know about the history of lard. Now he's like been to my grandma's kitchen and knows what she makes biscuits out of. Like he's assuming that she's not, like, because she made it past a certain threshold in age, everybody in their 80s, like he's assuming my grandma is in her 80s or 90s and everybody past this age made all their shit out of lard. Like you have no idea what my grandma did. And when he said that, I was like, my grandma? I was like, my grandma made that biscuits out of lard? Because I knew that it was completely ridiculous at that point. Because it's like he's trying to weasel his way into my life in some regard. With what he's talking about. And so there's a reason why society has moved past listening to people that just volunteer information. It's because it usually turns out to be creepy in some way or another. But like 30 years ago, I think that people were tone deaf to any amount of creepiness that would have come along with him saying something like that. I mean, maybe I'm just talking about myself. Maybe I would have been tone deaf. Not that it is really that creepy at all for him to just, like, in passing make a statement like that. It's not like he's really trying to be part of my life. But it's just that people are like animals, and they're gross like that, where they want to rub their scent on each other. Like, and they can't control it. It's just like a biological thing that's gross about humans, since they're all like dogs. And so you have to watch out for things like that. Like, the words that people say do mean something. Like, I feel like people are more hypersensitive about people's words now, is what I'm talking about. So that if it comes up that you even mention in words, like, well, your grandma, like he's involving himself like he knows my grandma. Like, he's telling me that I should listen. He's making a case like, well, you should listen to me because I know things about your grandma that even you don't know. And so there's this point at which it becomes creepy often with somebody who's volunteering information. Because, like, what do they want out of it if we're just, like, we don't know each other up front? And it's like, I'm never going to see this guy again, and he's not trying to be controlling to me, like, for any extended period of time, like into the future. He doesn't have a plan, is what I'm saying. But it's like, people just make minor attempts at, like, hypnosis like this, where hypnosis is kind of a drastic word to describe what I'm describing, but it's like trying to convince people that you have some authority and then you, like, believe them. Like, if I wasn't paying attention to that, subconsciously I could start thinking in my mind, like, after the interaction, like, oh, that guy did have something to say because he knows things about people I know. Like, if I wasn't thinking about it right up front, it could have been a partial hypnosis of sorts where that guy is, like, being a hypnotist. And what I'm saying is that hypnosis is not necessarily a drastic thing. It just kind of happens partially all over the place, where people are temporarily being hypnotized by each other for different things they say. And it's really like if you're more of a narcissist especially, you're probably more like unintentionally making ploys at, like, people are trying to argue that they are to be listened to over each other. And so, like, that just happens. But hypnosis is just this kind of scary idea, if you think about it, because everybody is, in varying degrees, hypnotized by different things. Like, we're sort of hypnotized just by politicians in the political world, where they are saying they have all this authority, but, like, in recent years we realize that they can't actually change shit because they're all just a bunch of talkers in empty suits. And so, like, the power of their hypnosis sort of wears off.
I'm not saying he should pull out driver here,
but
this is a long
if you want to describe it that way.
You never know. good line, good pace. Might have a chance.
So as it turns out, that guy is just being gross. But, like, I feel like society is better at holding people to... Well, you can't just say these, like, phrases and wives' tales and, like, idioms in passing. I don't know, or maybe I'm just talking about myself. But I'm talking about the culture is more hypersensitive, and, like, we're in a state of things where we're taking words literally, more literally than at other times it would feel. It feels that way.
Yeah,
But
hopefully accident. Not his best, but hopefully it's just 2 putts.
let me at least finish this round so I can get into the weekend. I wonder if there's a cut I have to make. Yeah, drilled it. Drilled that shot. I think I'm 1 over. I'm 1 over through the first round, but I am number 30, so I'm on track to make it
here at the TPC Sawgrass,
to the
558
CFT, the
yard,
Corn
par
Ferry,
five, no shortage of options,
the old
no
Corn
shortage
Ferry
of hazards,
Tour.
Frank.
If there's one hole at TPC Sawgrass where you can
Playing at the
literally
world
leap out of
famous
your
TPC
shoes,
Sawgrass.
this is it.
Right out of the center of the bat.
Did you hear that?
But the thing about conspiracy theory is that it's so, like, easy to apply
Well, that
it
was
to
a
somebody at
beautiful
this
drive,
point.
Frank. Really good
It's
position to
just
take
like,
advantage.
Sitting up
it's
beautifully in the
just
fairway.
like breathing.
Second shot.
Conspiracy, breathing together, with together breathing. That's what it means, like, literally translated. That's a word that lots of people like to bring up, that's the origin. Like, you hear that in a number of places. Because the word is so popular, a lot of people actually know the origin means breathing together. Conspiracy is just a group, really. It's a group, but it's a special kind of group that it has a heightened sense of loyalty because they're going to the lengths of breathing together, which is a deeper connection than just a average group. Something you signed up for. If you're breathing together, it gets more serious. Like, it's that deep, and so the group within themselves have a greater loyalty than other groups, and so it's more worrisome for the outside world. Conspiracy group. It's just that, like, you can't call a conspiracy group just a conspiracy because the word doesn't work like that. It's like you couldn't call an improv group an improv is a similar thing. You'd have to add the word group. But like conspiracy, we don't say a conspiracy group. We come up with other terms to try to figure it out. When a conspiracy is of people is always a group of people. Just like the thing is that the thing about conspiracies is, and I'm really going to blow your mind with this one. And I kid, but I mean, here's the thing, is that...
Headed for the bunker?
Well, there's like conspiracy theorists. Really, somebody should make conspiracy theory,
Still a chance
which
to get it up and down.
is like the theory of evolution. What is the theory of conspiracy? What is the conspiracy theory? That's what I want to know. Not that there would ever be one, but it would appear that a main focus of conspiracies... Let me just whack this shot right here without thinking too much about it. It would appear that main focus of conspiracies is to go after conspiracy theorists
Now we'll have this for birdie.
for saying like, oh, there's
Really
aliens.
not much to this. The
And
only issue would be a lack
like
of
a conspiracy
concentration or
theorist is
focus.
saying, oh, there's aliens. They believe in aliens. Then the outside world is like, you're a conspiracy theorist. But really, the main conspiracy is the one created by the outside world, calling conspiracy theorists that. By putting all of them in that group, or really in that conspiracy, since they're defined that way. Like, the greatest conspiracy is the one that is the one put on by all of the people who are afraid of conspiracy theorists for theorizing about conspiracies. Because really, because like that's the group that we put them all in. That's the way that we're able to define all of them. This is why the word comes up so much. It's like before people were using the word conspiracy so much, we didn't have a word to put all of the people who believe in different things like Bigfoot and aliens and the government is doing this. So many different levels of them. Like, it's such a broad term because there's so many different conspiracies that people have, so many different levels. It's basically like if you were an music enthusiast. If you listen to a lot of music and then you consume a lot of it to see all the different levels of like popularity of music, there's that many levels of conspiracies. Like it goes deeper and deeper, deeper than you would have ever thought. Obviously, for certain people believe different levels of it, whatever. But now conspiracy allows us to put all of those people under one term. But like the real conspiracy that people are afraid of are conspiracy theorists, because like that's the conspiracy, that's the greatest one, is the one of all the people who are worried about what conspiracy theorists are doing. Because, and I'm saying that's true is because nobody has any reason to give a fuck about what somebody believes in. It's just that people are afraid of them because they're alternative belief systems, like believing that aliens do this particular thing, or believing that aliens already know that we're here, they own the earth like it's a property of theirs. Different ways of viewing our relationship to aliens, different conspiracies about them. People are worried about all these alternative beliefs that people have more individually, more independently, because they're more uncontrollable and they're not under one giant corporate blanket of any kind. Like it's not like Islam or Judaism, because it's not this giant corporatized religion. And people are more worried about that because they're less certain about what's going on. And so then the people outside of conspiracy who don't deal in that very often are like worried about these people going off and believing like, oh, what are they going to do? Is that going to cause them to do some extremist thing? When the corporate religions, we see plenty of examples of them doing extreme things. But like that's an attempt by the rest of the world to rationalize this behavior or make it one generalized thing where we don't have to worry about particular versions of conspiracies. We put all of the conspiracy theorists under "you're a conspiracy theorist," and so this extends to lots of different people. But it's really just this is conspiracy theory about it, the entire thing that I'm giving to you. Conspiracy theory states that, according to me, as I'm bringing it up and in some ways creating it, I created the conspiracy theory, or conspiracy theory itself. I created it, I'm creating it right now. But it's pretty simple what I'm saying. Conspiracy theory states that the main conspiracy is put on by people calling conspiracy theorists because they're the ones who are afraid of conspiracy. But it's a conspiracy is something you're afraid of. You point it out because you're worried about these people that are breathing together. When it's like conspiracy theorists, they're also all worried about conspiracies, but I guess that's like a level deeper. But it's kind of just like the most general way of defining it. It's like the most obvious way of describing what the conspiracy is just all of the people that are conspiracy theorists are in one giant group, as long as we're describing them that way. And it's a big conspiracy, especially for the people who are afraid of it, because if they weren't afraid of it, they wouldn't be bringing it up so much. Or making it this derogatory thing, like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Trying to create a stigma about them, or act like they're doing something negative or untoward.
That is
The
gonna hurt
conspiracy
cause.
theorists, when like theorizing about shit is just natural reaction, and probably a good one to have in the world that we live in,
Been a little
since the
too
world
much
we
of
live
that,
in
Frank,
doesn't
just sort of
provide
home
you
run
very many
bars.
answers for shit.
Here now, the 12th hole at the
It,
TPC Sawgrass.
I
is
feel like you're in a
situated
healthier
58
state of
yard
things if
par
you're
four,
asking
so
questions
short on
and
the card,
theorizing
Frank,
about
but
what are the
obviously a
reasons by the
challenge.
world we
What's
live
the
in is
key
so
here?
Once again, trying to
fucked
find that
up and
right
why the
position on
system
the
could
fairway, and that's
improve,
down
but
the
it
right
never
side.
does,
Anything
or
down the
whatever.
left, that mound is gonna block
You're in
your
a
view.
healthier state of things if you're asking questions about that. And it's more ridiculous to be scared of people theorizing. It's like being afraid of people who are thinking on their own, or using their brain. And that's the real conspiracy, is the one that poses itself to people who are afraid of it, because they're like, if you are afraid of it, that's not good, because it's here, folks. You have to find the part of yourself that is conspiracy at this point, because it's so prevalent. Or it's like, we understand that this manifests itself, conspiracy manifests itself in so many different ways, that you're living in a fantasy world if you're saying you're not touched by it at all. I mean, like, not infringed on by it, not molested by it. That's what I mean. You're lying if you're saying you weren't molested by conspiracy theory. But I'm saying, at this point, you have to find the conspiracy theory that lives within
This one's
yourself,
sweet,
because
Frank.
we all have it.
Super.
Otherwise, you're stuck on the
Good
outside.
spot right there.
Otherwise, you're just somebody who will be afraid of this major conspiracy your entire life, where you're
Frank,
afraid
this
of
is
the
a
major
position where a
conspiracy of
player
these
is
people that are
absolutely
conspiracy
licking his
theorists.
chops here. Good
It's
chance to
like
make a break.
Yeah, this is when this game
it's like
just looks
initiation
like fun.
into a
Bunkers
group.
don't seem to be in play.
Everybody has to
Only
do
thing you're
it or
really looking
something.
at
Like
right
everybody
now
has to
is
make it
just the
through to the
flag.
other side. Otherwise, it'll define you. Don't let conspiracy theory define you. And in that sense, in some backwards way, I'm describing that you'll be defined by conspiracy theory if you don't accept that it is happening no matter what. Don't deny it. You gotta just let it in. You gotta let it happen. That's what I'm saying. It works that way with so many things in life, that it's like a thing in the world or an idea that becomes so popular. Then it gets to a
That is
point where you're
classic.
like, well, I mean, there's
Johnson
nothing
going
I can
in.
do. It's everywhere. I'm part of it now. Like, there's lots of shit in the
Or
world
yesterday.
that it's like it has
for
made its
birdie.
way to everybody in at least in some way. I'd say that Jesus is like that, like somebody that reaches an astronomical level of fame. Wow, that was a quick hour of my life. I didn't imagine that I would only
Frank,
talk
how much
about
does that
like
birdie help
a
the
couple
cause?
things, and then
Doesn't
an
look
entire
like much
hour
right
would be
now, Rich.
done.
Just sneaking
But
inside the top 20, but at the end of the
oh, look,
day,
I made it to
that
even
might be
par.
the one that turned the tide.
One of the great things about this golf course, Frank, a variety of par threes, different yardages. Here at the 13th, 181-yard par three.
I wonder what
Yeah,
I'll title this
is,
episode.
where you
anyway,
have to be careful on the tee
let me
that
think if there's something
anything
else I
left's
wanted to
just gonna be eaten
say.
up by that lake. Matter of fact, if you hit one
gonna
with a little
say
bit of a hook
that
and it catches the
when I was
mound,
talking
it can
about
still kick into
genius,
the lake. So this one here, just
our
be a
relationship
little
to
cautious on the
genius.
tee.
Let me mention what that was. What I was trying to say with that. Like, I was gonna say that our relationship to genius is one where we stigmatize. It's just like antiquated for us to act like genius is so far off in the distance, because in some senses everyone is a genius, and we've sort of already processed that in the world by overusing it, or like describing Taylor Swift as a genius. I mean, it's still like not, no, we wouldn't call everybody a genius at this point. But in some senses, everybody is a little bit of a genius, or everybody's a little bit of a savant, or like a little bit autistic, because everybody's just starting to say that they're autistic. It's that thing I was describing before. It's like autism has become such a big idea that everybody's just starting to see it in themselves. Like, but if you say, you mentioned that this way of living, I guess you can't call it a disorder, this thing, autism, you say specifically that shows itself on a spectrum, you're already trapping the entire world to call themselves autistic because a spectrum is like, well, I guess I'm a little bit autistic. It's just that a lot of people are now in a position where we're like, oh, I guess I'm a little autistic. Like, it's just kind of become more of a joke as it's become more prevalent of an idea. Like, it becomes watered down the more that people use and reuse the term for their own purposes. It dilutes the sanctity of, like, the original instances of it, which used to be holier or something, because there weren't 1,000 derivatives of it created. And I'm talking about the more people use the word autistic or describe it, apply it to themselves or their own situation, is the more that it just gets watered down, like too many interpretations. But I'm saying that, like, we call Einstein a genius. This is why I'm saying it's antiquated. It's because as far as genius is concerned, it's almost like it lives in a time gone by, like 60 years ago when Einstein was still alive. Because as far as genius is concerned, who's going to do better than him, or like the Thomas Edisons of the world? They are geniuses. I think that it's a time better suited. It's like a word better suited for the 40s or something, because Elon Musk, I bet Elon Musk is more of a genius than Einstein. Einstein's contributions were all theoretical, and so that really, in today's terms, kind of just makes him a conspiracy theorist. Like, if Einstein was saying all the shit he was saying today, it would never fly. No one would give him any credibility, because we would just be like, oh, you're talking out of your ass. And when you look back at it, Einstein's contributions are mostly just theoretical. They're assessments he made of when he looked under a microscope at some shit, and he made some theories. He's just a theorist. Elon Musk makes all these actual contributions. He's way more of a genius than Einstein. Einstein actually kind of sucks in comparison to Elon Musk, because Einstein is just a narcissist talking out of his ass, theorizing that this is the way you need to see science, when anybody could see science whatever way. It's just that Einstein came around at the right moment in time where people were open to thinking that somebody's theory is like just as real as an invention or something. Like, back when Einstein was popular, you could do shit like that. Your contributions could be completely theoretical, and we would say that you were the greatest even if you didn't create anything. At this point in history, we need you to make something, or else we don't know shit about what you're saying. And so things are a lot different, and that's a change for the better. But it's really like nobody is a genius, because Einstein is the genius as far as I can tell. Or it's like, you could call Elon Musk a genius now, but it doesn't mean anything, because everyone's just, because like it's open to the public. The public is commenting on him and calling him shit alongside the people that are calling him great. And it's like up for debate that he's a genius all the time, even if he's already contributed so much. Like, genius as an idea is dead, I'm saying. And so it's just, I'm making a point about the world's relationship to idealism, especially in the area of intelligence, where it's like, we don't call everybody a genius, but we're calling more and more people that. And it's really like, it's not that everybody is a genius, it's that nobody is a genius, because everybody is stupid. And Einstein, I bet you anything, was also an idiot, and probably was stupid like 20% of the days of his life. Like, you fall in and out of stupid. He wasn't a genius 100% of the time. It's just like, after this fact, we're asked to view him like he's a god or a perfect ideal figure. And so then it makes you think that he was smart all the time, and that's the smart people are always smart kind of thing. This way of thinking about the smart or the intelligent isn't healthy, I would say, because It's not like they're God. Smart people are. I would say everybody, even the smartest, fade into stupid, have stupid days and stupid thoughts, and are just like the rest of us. Nobody is a genius, and it's ridiculous to try to impose that standard in any regard. It's kind of silly, and it just speaks to what I think should be a time gone by where like we need to put away where we say the smart people are so much different, and we are breaking down those walls, and I broke them down too. Me too. I helped because I'm a good person. I assisted. Whatever good thing that I'm describing, I was part of it, and it's because the positivity that, not that the world is bringing necessarily, but if you would just focus on when I bring it, when I'm positive, that's what I'm talking about mostly. And then self-deprecating too, because speaking words on top of words to make sure I'm good about whatever because I'm good, right? Make sure you see it that way or whatever. Thank you for listening. This has been the 90th episode of the Currency Podcast. Do whatever you want, subscribe or whatever the fuck. Bye.